3 days before my engagement party, I was fired for a crime I didn't commit. 2 weeks later, my fiancé, the man I thought I'd spend my life with, canceled a $100 million deal with the very company that betrayed me. Don't ask me to tell this story unless you're ready to hear it all, including why their CEO now runs a car wash in Kansas instead of a private equity firm in Chicago. Because when you come for someone who knows where the bodies are buried, you better make damn sure they stay dead. My name is Emily Monroe, and until 3 weeks ago, I was the senior strategic analyst at Vextro Capital, one of those gleaming Chicago firms where the coffee costs $18 a pound and nobody blinks when someone drops 40 grand on a client dinner. 8 years I'd given to that place. 8 years of 14-hour days, canceled vacations, and relationships that died slow deaths while I built models and crunched numbers that moved hundreds of millions through the market. At 32, I'd earned my spot at the table where real decisions got made. Not the conference room where they paraded PowerPoints, but the actual table, the one in Harold Keene's corner office where 3 or 4 of us would sit and carve up companies like Thanksgiving turkeys. I was good at what I did. Hell, I was exceptional. My analyses had saved Vextro from 2 catastrophic investments and identified 3 unicorns before anyone else saw their potential. The irony is, I actually loved it. The adrenaline rush of a closing deal, the chess game of negotiations, even the sharp edges of office politics. I navigated it all with the kind of precision that made me indispensable, or so I thought. My fiancé, Daniel Reed, ran Glintwave, a tech company that did something with blockchain and supply chain management that sounded boring but printed money. We'd met at a conference 2 years ago, not through work, just random chance at a hotel bar where we both ordered whiskey neat and laughed about it. He was brilliant, ambitious, and unlike the finance bros I usually dated, he actually listened when I talked. When Vextro started courting Glintwave for a $100 million partnership, I disclosed everything to compliance, filed the paperwork, got every signature. By the book, because that's who I am. I was the bridge between both sides. My reputation opened doors at Vextro. My relationship with Daniel smoothed tensions at Glintwave. Everyone won. The firms got their deal. Daniel got expansion capital, and I got to prove I could handle the conflict of interest like a professional. Amanda Voss hated every second of it. She'd been at Vextro 6 months longer than me, but I'd leapfrogged her twice on promotions. Where I built relationships, she burned them. Where I found creative solutions, she found problems. But she had Harold's ear. Some said she had more than that, though nobody would say it above a whisper, and in our world. Proximity to power matters more than competence. The Vextro ecosystem was a shark tank dressed in Armani. We smiled at each other over morning lattes while calculating who to throw under the bus when quarterly reports disappointed. Trust was currency, and betrayal was just business. But I'd survived 8 years by being smarter, faster, and more useful than everyone else. I had allies, or at least, people who needed me enough to watch my back. My apartment in Lincoln Park, the vintage Porsche I'd bought myself for my 30th birthday, the engagement ring Daniel had custom designed with a center stone that caught light like captured starfire. These weren't just things, they were proof that I'd won. That a girl from suburban Milwaukee who'd put herself through Northwestern on scholarships and student loans had made it to the top of one of the most cutthroat industries in America. 3 days before our engagement party, I remember walking through the office feeling invincible. The Glintwave deal was sailing through final approvals. Daniel and I had finalized the guest list, a perfect mix of his tech crowd and my finance people, plus enough family to keep our mothers happy. My dress, a devastating piece from Monique Lhuillier, hung in my office closet for the quick change I'd do after markets closed on Friday. I should have noticed the looks, the way conversations stopped when I walked by, the sudden interest everyone had in their screens when I entered the break room. But I was riding high on my own success, too confident in my position to see the knife coming for my back. In this world, the most dangerous moment isn't when you're struggling to climb the ladder. It's when you're standing on top, thinking you're untouchable, not noticing that someone has already started sawing through the rungs beneath your feet. The call came at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Emily, can you come to HR? Bring your laptop. That's how it starts. Not with sirens or dramatic music, just Margaret from Human Resources using her careful voice, the one reserved for terminations and sexual harassment seminars. I grabbed my MacBook and headed to the 11th floor, still thinking about the Milan trip I was supposed to take next week to close another acquisition. The conference room had that staged quality you see in true crime documentaries. Margaret sat with her hands folded over a manila folder thick enough to beat someone to death with. Harold Keene was there, which should have been my first real warning. CEOs don't sit in on regular HR meetings. Amanda Voss occupied the corner chair, trying and failing to suppress a smile. Emily, please sit, Harold said, not meeting my eyes. He'd been at my apartment 2 months ago, drinking champagne to celebrate the Glintwave preliminary agreement. His wife had admired my kitchen renovation. Margaret opened the folder like she was defusing a bomb. We've received serious allegations regarding the mishandling of confidential information. Internal audit has found evidence that sensitive Vextro data was shared with Glintwave outside of approved channels. That's impossible, I said, my voice steady even as my stomach dropped. Every communication has been documented and approved by compliance. We have logs showing your credentials accessing restricted files at unusual hours. Amanda interjected, sliding a printout across the table. Files that had nothing to do with the Glintwave partnership, strategic positions, competitor analyses, our entire playbook for Q4. I scanned the document. My login credentials, but timestamps that made no sense. 2 a.m., 3:47 a.m., times when I was asleep next to Daniel in my apartment. Someone else used my access. This is obviously... We also have this. Margaret interrupted, producing another document. An anonymous whistleblower complaint dated a week ago, claiming I'd been feeding information to Daniel for months. Given the serious nature of these allegations and the potential SEC implications, we need to act immediately. You're terminating me. It wasn't a question. We're accepting your voluntary resignation to avoid a formal investigation. Harold finally looked at me, his expression carved from granite. It's cleaner for everyone. You'll receive 2 weeks severance, contingent on signing a non-disclosure agreement. Your access is revoked effective immediately. This is bullshit, Harold, and you know it. I've made you millions. Security will escort you to clear your desk, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. You have 15 minutes. The walk to my office felt like a perp walk. 2 security guards flanked me while everyone pretended to be absorbed in their monitors. My hands shook as I dumped personal items into a banker's box. The framed photo of Daniel and me in Santorini, my Northwestern diploma, the lucky dollar bill from my first closed deal. My company phone was confiscated, my keycard deactivated before we reached the elevator. Don't take it personally, Amanda whispered as the elevator doors began to close. You were just too expensive to keep around. The doors shut on her smirk. In the lobby, I stood holding that pathetic box while tourists streamed around me, staring up at the Calder mobile that dominated the atrium. My phone, my personal one, started buzzing immediately. Word travels fast in Chicago finance. By the time I got to my car, I had 17 missed calls and a text from someone at Bloomberg asking for comment. The Vextro company-wide email went out while I was driving home. Emily Monroe has chosen to pursue opportunities outside the firm. We wish her the best in her future endeavors. Translation: she's radioactive? Don't touch her. My parking garage felt different when you knew you'd never rush through it again at 6 a.m., coffee in one hand, phone in the other, ready to conquer the world. I sat in my Porsche, soon to be repossessed if I couldn't find another job, and finally let myself process what had happened. 8 years of loyalty. 8 years of making Harold look like a genius to the board. 8 years of building something I thought mattered, gone in 15 minutes, with a box of desk trinkets and a reputation in ruins. I called Daniel from the parking garage, my voice breaking for the first time. They fired me. They're saying I leaked information to you. The pause on his end lasted a beat too long. What? That's insane. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm home. Daniel, they fabricated everything. Someone used my login to access files. This is Amanda. She's wanted me gone for years. Jesus, okay. We'll figure this out. The engagement party. Fuck the party, Daniel. My career just got torched. Another pause. Right. Of course, I'm coming over. But something in his voice had changed, a distance that hadn't been there 5 seconds ago, a calculation happening behind the concern. I sat in my car for another hour, watching my phone light up with messages from colleagues, some supportive, most just fishing for gossip. The Chicago finance world is small. By market close, everyone would know Emily Monroe got fired for cause. By morning, the speculation would be brutal. The real knife twist came that evening when I checked my email. My Vextro account was gone, naturally, but someone had forwarded me the internal announcement of Amanda's promotion to Senior Strategic Director. Effective immediately. My title, my office, my deals. The setup was so clean, so surgical, I almost admired it. Almost. Daniel arrived at my apartment 3 hours later. 3 hours. It takes 20 minutes from his office in the Loop to Lincoln Park, even in bad traffic. He walked in carrying takeout from RPM Italian like this was a normal Tuesday night, not the day my life imploded. We need to talk about how this affects the deal, he said, setting the food on my counter. Not, how are you? Not, this is insane. His first concern was the $100 million partnership. Are you serious right now? I stared at him. This man I'd planned to marry in 6 months. I just got framed and fired, and you're worried about the deal? He ran his hands through his hair, that nervous tell I once found endearing. Of course I'm worried about you, but we have to be realistic. The optics are terrible. If Vextro thinks you've been feeding me information, which I haven't. I know that. You know that. But perception is reality in this business. He finally looked at me directly, and what I saw there made my chest tight. Fear. Not for me, but for himself. My board is already asking questions. 3 of them called me before I left the office. You're bored? I laughed, but it came out sharp and bitter. Daniel, they destroyed me based on fabricated evidence. Amanda Voss orchestrated this whole thing, and Harold went along with it because... You can't prove that, he interrupted. And even if you could, what then? You sue? Drag this through court for 2 years while bleeding legal fees? Meanwhile, Glintwave gets pulled into a scandal that could tank our valuation right before Series C funding. The apartment felt suddenly cold despite the June heat outside. This was the man who'd held my hand through my father's cancer scare, who'd spent 3 days helping me prepare for the biggest presentation of my career, who'd gotten down on one knee at sunset on North Avenue Beach and promised to be my partner in everything. What are you saying, Daniel? He moved toward me, tried to take my hands, but I stepped back. I'm saying maybe you should take a step back. Let things cool down. The engagement party, we could postpone it, just until this blows over. Postpone it? My voice was flat. My lawyers think? You've already talked to your lawyers? Emily, be reasonable. I have to protect Glintwave. We're about to close the biggest deal in our company's history. I can't have my fiancé at the center of a corporate espionage scandal, even a fake one. Every word was a perfectly placed blade. I walked to my window, looking out at the city lights, all those buildings full of people who'd know my name by tomorrow for all the wrong reasons. Get out. Please. You know what the really pathetic part is? I turned to face him. I actually thought you'd fight for me. For us. I thought when it came down to it, you'd choose me over the money. That's not fair. This isn't about choosing. It's exactly about choosing. And you've made your choice clear. I pulled off my engagement ring, 2 carats of perfect clarity that meant nothing now, and set it on the coffee table with a soft click. Take it. Consider the engagement officially off. His face went through several expressions: shock, anger, something that might have been regret. Emily, you're being emotional. Let's talk about this tomorrow when... Tomorrow I'll be the woman who got fired from Vextro for selling secrets to her fiancé. Tomorrow you'll be distancing yourself even further to protect your precious deal. There's nothing to talk about. He picked up the ring, holding it like it might explode. This isn't how I wanted. Just go, Daniel. After he left, I sent a single text to our wedding planner. Cancel everything. Then I posted on Instagram. Engagement off, no questions, no comments. 17 words to end a 2-year relationship. My phone exploded with messages, but I turned it off and poured myself 3 fingers of the good bourbon. The bottle Daniel and I had been saving for our engagement party. The apartment felt too quiet, too big. All those carefully chosen pieces of our future together. The coffee table we'd bought at an estate sale in Winnetka. The painting we'd fallen in love with at a River North gallery. The KitchenAid mixer he'd gotten me last Christmas because I'd mentioned wanting to learn to bake. Props in a life that no longer existed. I sat in the dark, drinking bourbon that burned less than the betrayal, and thought about trust. How it takes years to build and seconds to destroy. How the people we let closest have the sharpest knives. Vextro had been a calculated professional hit. But this, Daniel choosing his company over me without even a fight, this was personal annihilation. But here's the thing about being destroyed. Once everything is rubble, you can see clearly what was holding the structure together. And what I saw, sitting in my expensive apartment with my canceled wedding and my torched career, was that I'd been playing by everyone else's rules. Following their playbook, trusting their system. That ended tonight. Tomorrow, I would start playing by my own rules. And unlike Daniel, unlike Harold, unlike Amanda, I had nothing left to lose. They should have remembered that before they came for me. In finance, we have a saying. The most dangerous trader is the one with nothing left to protect. I was about to become very, very dangerous. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did what I do best. I analyzed. By 3 a.m., I'd mapped out every interaction with Amanda Voss from the past 6 months on my living room wall using Post-its and red string like some conspiracy theorist. But this wasn't paranoia. This was pattern recognition. The missed meetings she'd mysteriously known about. The client dinner where she'd shown up accidentally with the same talking points I'd prepared. The way she'd volunteered to help with the Glintwave compliance paperwork. At dawn, I called Marcus Webb, a forensic data analyst who'd left Vextro 2 years ago under suspicious circumstances. We'd stayed in touch. Shared grievances make strong bonds in our world. Emily Monroe, he answered on the second ring. Heard you joined the Vextro Survivors Club. I need your help, Marcus. This about the bullshit termination? Because anyone with half a brain knows you didn't leak anything. Can you prove it? A pause. That depends. How dirty do you want to get? I want to bury them. We met at a diner in Pilsen, far from the Loop's prying eyes. Marcus looked exactly the same. Disheveled genius in a Radiohead t-shirt who could trace digital footprints like bloodhounds trace scent. Your login credentials were used from IP addresses inside Vextro, but not from your workstation, he said, sliding a tablet across the greasy table. The access pattern is all wrong. Whoever did this didn't know your actual workflow. They downloaded everything they could find, like amateurs. Can you trace it to a specific computer? Already did. He pulled up another screen. Amanda Voss's machine. But here's the interesting part. She was too smart to use her own login. She used yours, but she was too stupid to realize the building security cameras would show her at her desk during those exact timestamps. My heart hammered. You have footage? I have a friend who has a friend. Let's leave it at that. He produced a USB drive. Timestamp synced video showing Amanda at her desk at 2:47 a.m. on 3 separate occasions, matching exactly when you were accessing those files. This is illegally obtained evidence. It won't hold up in court. Marcus grinned. Who said anything about court? You're thinking like a lawyer. Think like a hostile takeover specialist. He was right. I didn't need legal vindication. I needed leverage. The next piece came from Rachel Torres, a compliance officer at Vextro who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times. She agreed to meet me at the Art Institute, pretending to admire nighthawks while she handed me an envelope. The whistleblower complaint was submitted through our anonymous portal, she said quietly. But IT keeps logs that compliance doesn't know about. The complaint originated from Amanda's laptop. She literally filed a complaint against you from her own machine. Why are you helping me? Rachel turned to leave, then paused. Because next time it could be me. Or any woman who outperforms her. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source, Harold Keene's assistant, Patricia, who called me from her personal phone. I'm retiring next month, she said without preamble. 30 years I've watched that man destroy careers for convenience. I'm done being silent. She told me about the meetings between Harold and Amanda that never appeared on official calendars, the promises of promotion in exchange for handling the Emily situation. The way Harold had been spooked by regulatory scrutiny of the Glintwave deal, worried that my dual relationship would trigger an SEC investigation. He needed you gone but couldn't fire you without cause, Patricia explained. Amanda gave him cause. Do you have proof? Check your email. She'd forwarded me recordings. Illinois is a 2-party consent state for recordings. But Patricia didn't care about legal niceties anymore. Harold's voice, clear as day. I don't care how you do it, Amanda. Just make sure Emily's gone before the Glintwave deal closes. We can't have any perceived conflicts when the SEC comes sniffing. And Amanda's response, I'll handle it. But I want her office and her title. Done. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by evidence that could destroy careers, tank stock prices, trigger federal investigations. The smart play would be to package it all up, send it to the SEC, and watch Vextro burn from a safe distance. But that would be too easy. Too clean. They'd destroyed my reputation, my engagement, my carefully built life. A federal investigation would hurt the company. But Harold had golden parachutes, and Amanda would claim she was just following orders. No. I wanted something more personal, more complete. I thought about Daniel, about the way he'd chosen his deal over me without hesitation, about Harold, who'd smiled at my dinner table while planning my execution, about Amanda, who'd weaponized the system against me because she couldn't win fair and square. They'd all made one critical miscalculation. They'd assumed I'd follow the rules even after they'd broken them. They'd assumed I'd fight like a lady, with lawyers and lawsuits and proper procedures. They were wrong. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Daniel's number. It was time to show them what happens when you corner someone who knows all your secrets and has nothing left to lose. Daniel, I said when he answered. We need to talk about Vextro. In person. Tonight. Emily, I don't think. Trust me, you want to hear what I have to say. Unless you want to explain to your board why you're about to partner with a company under federal investigation for fraud. The silence stretched between us like a tightrope. I'll be there in an hour, he finally said. I smiled, the first real smile since Tuesday. The game was about to change, and this time, I was dealing the cards. Daniel arrived exactly an hour later, wearing the Tom Ford suit I'd helped him pick for his first board presentation. He stood in my doorway like a stranger, formal and distant, until he saw what I'd laid out on my dining table. Every document, every screenshot, every piece of evidence arranged like a prosecution exhibit. The security footage on my laptop paused on Amanda's face. The audio recorder cued to Harold's voice. The digital forensics report with its damning IP traces. Jesus Christ, Emily. Sit down, Daniel. He moved like a man in a minefield, pulling out the chair where he'd eaten hundreds of meals, where we'd planned our future over morning coffee. Now it was ground zero for Vextro's destruction. I walked him through everything, methodical and cold. The way I used to present acquisition targets. Here's the fraud. Here's the conspiracy. Here's the evidence that would trigger an SEC investigation, shareholder lawsuits, criminal charges. This is... He stopped, started again. This is a nuclear bomb. Yes. You could destroy them. Harold would go to prison. Amanda too, probably. Yes. He looked up at me then, and for a moment I saw the man I'd fallen in love with, the one who understood strategy and respected power plays. But you're not going to do that. No, I'm not. I sat across from him, maintaining the distance that now defined us. I'm giving you a choice. You can complete the Glintwave deal with Vextro, injecting $100 million into a company that's about to implode from fraud charges. Your due diligence will have missed massive criminal activity. Your board will question your judgment. And Glintwave will be tied up in investigations for years. Or you walk away. Cancel the deal. Tomorrow. Daniel's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Emily, we're 2 weeks from closing. The penalties alone. Check Section 47B of your agreement. Material Adverse Change Clause. Discovery of systematic fraud and falsification of records certainly qualifies. You can walk with no penalties. He knew I was right. I'd helped negotiate that clause. Insisted on it, actually. Back when I thought I was protecting both sides. If I cancel, Vextro's other deals will collapse. Their stock will tank. It'll be a bloodbath. Yes, you're asking me to destroy them. I'm asking you to choose. Stand with the people who destroyed me, or walk away from them. It's actually the easiest choice you'll ever make. You lose nothing but a deal you can replace. They lose everything. Daniel stood, paced to the window. I watched him wrestle with it. This man who'd discarded me like a liability just days ago, now holding Vextro's fate in his hands. Why not just release it all anyway? Why give me this choice? Because I want you to own this decision, Daniel. I want you to lie awake knowing you could have stood by them, could have taken their money, could have pretended none of this mattered, but you didn't. You chose to destroy them, just like you chose to abandon me. That's not, Emily. I was trying to protect. Stop. I held up my hand. This isn't about us. There is no us. This is about business. The kind of clean, emotionless business decision you're so good at making. He turned back to the table, studied the evidence again. I could see him calculating risk versus reward, exposure versus opportunity. The Daniel I'd loved was gone. This was just another CEO making another deal. If I walk, what happens to this? He gestured at the evidence. Nothing. It disappears. No investigations, no lawsuits, no public scandals. Vextro dies from market forces, not criminal prosecution. Cleaner for everyone. And if I don't walk? Then I forward everything to the SEC, the FBI, the Wall Street Journal, and every member of Vextro's board tomorrow morning. Your deal closes just in time to be Exhibit A in a federal fraud case. Daniel laughed, bitter and short. You've thought of everything. I learned from the best. He pulled out his phone, typed for a moment. I need to call an emergency board meeting. Tonight? Section 47B, I reminded him. You don't need board approval to invoke a material adverse change clause. You just need balls. That got him. His jaw tightened the way it did when someone questioned his courage. Fine, I'll do it. Tomorrow morning, I'll kill the deal. I want it in writing. Email your lawyers now. Copy me on it. You don't trust me? I looked at him, this man whose ring I'd worn, whose bed I'd shared, whose future I'd planned to build. I don't trust anyone anymore. You taught me that. He composed the email on his phone, his fingers moving with the same precision he used to text me goodnight. Send. Done. $100 million deal destroyed in 140 characters. We could have had everything, he said quietly, not looking at me. We did have everything. You just decided it wasn't enough. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. What happens to you now? That's no longer your concern. Emily. Goodbye, Daniel. After he left, I poured myself a glass of wine and waited. At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. An email from Daniel's lawyers to Vextro's legal team, invoking Section 47B, effective immediately. Deal terminated. By midnight, the news had leaked to Bloomberg. By morning, it would be everywhere. I raised my glass to the Chicago skyline, to all those glittering towers full of sharks and killers and people who thought they were untouchable. "Your move, Harold," I whispered to the night. The king was in check. Time to see if he'd sacrifice his queen to save himself. The aftermath hit Vextro like a tsunami in slow motion. Wednesday morning, Glintwave's termination letter went public. By noon, Vextro's stock had dropped 12%. Other pending deals started wobbling as partners wondered what material adverse change Daniel had discovered. Harold went on CNBC to insist everything was fine, but his sweating upper lip told a different story. Amanda called me Thursday at 2 a.m., drunk and raging. "You vindictive bitch. You destroyed everything." "Amanda, you're drunk, and you're recording this call, aren't you? Trying to get me to admit something?" Silence. Then, "How did you do it?" "I didn't do anything. Daniel made a business decision. Maybe you should ask Harold why his protege suddenly got cold feet." "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. Check your email tomorrow." "Amanda, you're about to have bigger problems than me." I'd sent the security footage and IP logs to Vextro's board. Anonymously, of course, not enough for criminal prosecution, but plenty for internal investigation. Corporate boards hate scandal more than crime. Friday morning, Amanda Voss was escorted from the building. Official reason: violation of company information security policies. The kind of vague corporate speak that meant, "We know what you did, but don't want the publicity of saying it." But Harold survived. Because men like Harold always do. He threw Amanda under the bus with practiced precision, claimed he'd been misled, promised the board a thorough review of security protocols. The old boys network closed ranks around him like antibodies protecting a virus. Until Patricia played her final card, she released the recordings to a financial blogger with 1 million followers. Not the mainstream press, they'd verify and delay. But the blogosphere, they published immediately. Harold's voice, crystal clear, orchestrating my termination. The SEC opened an investigation that afternoon. By Monday, Harold Keene had resigned to pursue other opportunities. The board appointed an interim CEO and announced a comprehensive review of all management practices. Vextro's stock fell another 20%. I got a call from their general counsel Tuesday morning. "Ms. Monroe, the board would like to discuss a potential resolution." "I'm not interested in resolutions. We're prepared to offer significant compensation, full reinstatement, back pay, a senior director position." "No." "I'm sorry. I don't want your money. I don't want your job. I want you to live with what you did." "Ms. Monroe, surely we can—" I hung up. The real satisfaction came from the smaller dominoes. Harold's wife filed for divorce after the recordings went public. His country club revoked his membership. Northwestern removed him from their advisory board. The man who'd ruled Chicago finance for 2 decades became radioactive overnight. Amanda fared worse. Word spread about what she'd done, not officially, but through the whisper network that really runs our industry. She couldn't get interviews anywhere in Chicago. Last I heard, she'd moved to Dallas, working at a third-tier firm for half her previous salary. But the best part? Harold's golden parachute had a morality clause. The board invoked it based on the recordings. Instead of walking away with $30 million, he got nothing. His Wilmette mansion went on the market within a month. The Porsche dealership repossessed his 911 turbos. Someone sent me a photo 3 months later. Harold Keene washing cars at a detail shop in Kansas, where his brother-in-law had given him a pity job. He was wearing a name tag that said Hal and a smile that looked like rigor mortis. I printed that photo, framed it, keep it in my home office as a reminder. Marcus called it poetic justice. You didn't just beat them, you erased them. They erased themselves. I just held up the mirror. The strangest call came from Daniel, 6 months later. "The deal with Vector fell through," he said without preamble. Vector was Vextro's main competitor, the obvious replacement partner. "I know. Did you have something to do with that?" I sent their due diligence team a friendly note about the importance of verifying all personnel records and checking for unusual access patterns, just professional courtesy. Jesus, Emily. When does it end? It ended when Harold washed his first Toyota Camry. Everything else is just insurance. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For all of it. For choosing wrong. No, you're not. You're sorry it cost you. There's a difference. I loved you. You loved the idea of me, the power couple, the perfectly leveraged life. When I became inconvenient, that love evaporated faster than Vextro's market cap. He didn't deny it. For what it's worth, the board thinks I'm a hero for avoiding the Vextro disaster. Congratulations, you failed upward, very on brand for you. Emily. I hung up. Some conversations don't need endings, they just need to stop. The Chicago finance world moved on, as it always does. New scandals, new players, new deals. But people remembered. When my name came up, it was with a mixture of respect and fear. The woman who brought down Vextro, the analyst who played the long game and won. But I wasn't playing anymore. I was done with their game, their rules, their rigged system where Amanda Vosses could destroy careers and Harold Keynes could buy their way out of consequences. Well, almost done. I had one more move to make. I launched Monroe Strategic Consulting on a rainy Tuesday in October, 6 months after Vextro burned. No fancy loop office, just a converted loft in the West Loop with exposed brick and good light. My first client found me before I'd even registered the LLC, a female CFO who'd been pushed out of her firm after refusing her CEO's advances. I heard what you did to Vextro, she said. I need that kind of justice. Within 3 months, I had 12 clients. All women. All brilliant. All discarded by a system that treated them as disposable. I didn't just consult, I architected resurrections. We gathered evidence, mapped power structures, identified pressure points. Some wanted vindication. Others wanted revenge. I gave them both. My fee structure was simple, nothing upfront, 30% of whatever settlement or severance they secured. But the real payment was watching them reclaim their narratives. The marketing director who exposed her company's wage discrimination and walked away with $2 million. The partner who documented systematic harassment and got her abuser's entire team disbanded. The analyst who proved patent theft and ended up running the division that tried to bury her. We called ourselves the Monroe Network, though never publicly. Just women helping women navigate the knife fights of corporate America, sharing intelligence, covering each other's backs. What the old boys network had done for generations. We did better, sharper. Without the golf memberships and cigar smoke. A year in, Forbes wanted to do a profile. I declined. Bloomberg persistently called. I didn't answer. My clients knew how to find me. Everyone else could wonder. Patricia joined me as operations director. Her 30 years of watching powerful men destroy careers made her invaluable at spotting patterns. Marcus ran digital forensics on retainer. Rachel became our compliance expert, teaching clients how to document everything without triggering suspicion. The offers to return to traditional finance never stopped. Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, even Vextro's main competitor, they all reached out with packages that would have set me up for life. Senior positions, signing bonuses, promises of autonomy. I turned them all down with the same response. I'm not interested in being part of your ecosystem anymore. Because that's what I'd finally understood. Sitting in my destroyed apartment with my canceled wedding and torched career, their ecosystem was designed to consume people like me, talented enough to generate value, expendable enough to sacrifice when convenient. The game wasn't rigged, it was working exactly as intended. Daniel got married last spring, some tech heiress from San Francisco, the kind of match that looked perfect in TechCrunch headlines. He sent me an invitation, hand-delivered to my office, expensive cardstock with gold embossing. I had my assistant return it unopened with a note. No longer at this address. Harold reached out once, through his lawyer. He wanted to sue me for defamation, claimed I'd orchestrated his downfall. My attorney's response was beautiful in its simplicity. Please proceed. Discovery should be fascinating. Never heard from him again. Amanda disappeared entirely after Dallas. Some said she'd moved to London, others heard Singapore. I didn't care enough to verify. She'd become what she'd tried to make me. A cautionary tale whispered at happy hours. The last time I drove past Vextro's building, they were removing the letters from the facade. The company had been acquired by a European firm for parts, the corporate equivalent of organ donation. The corner office where Harold had ended my career was being converted to a wellness room. Even buildings have better karma than the people who inhabit them. 3 years have passed since that Tuesday morning when my phone rang and my world shifted. I don't have the Lincoln Park apartment anymore. I bought a gray stone in Wicker Park, something with character and history that wasn't tied to anyone's expectations but mine. The Porsche's gone too, replaced with a Tesla that drives itself while I review case files. My engagement ring? I had it reset into cufflinks and donated them to a charity auction. They raised $12,000 for a women's shelter. Daniel would have hated the symbolism. Some nights, I work late in my office, city lights spreading below like a circuit board. And I think about the woman who used to believe the system would reward loyalty and excellence. She was naive, but she wasn't wrong. Excellence and loyalty do get rewarded, just not by the system. They get rewarded by the people you pull up with you, the networks you build outside the traditional structure, the justice you create when institutions fail. I didn't get my happy ending, not in the traditional sense. No wedding, no corner office at a prestigious firm, no feature in Fortune's 40 Under 40. Instead, I got something better. The knowledge that when they came for me with everything they had, I didn't just survive, I won. And Harold? Well, he's still washing cars in Kansas. I had someone check last week. He's been promoted to shift manager, which means he makes an extra $2 an hour and has to wear a different color shirt. The American dream, just not the one he'd planned. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But they're wrong. Revenge is best served with precision, patience, and just enough public documentation to ensure everyone knows exactly what happened. I never got the engagement ring, but I got my name back, and I dragged an empire down with their own silence. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious. Where are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let me know what city or country you're tuning in from. I love connecting with people who understand that sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well, it's making sure the people who wronged you live with the consequences. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever dealt with workplace betrayal? How did you handle it? Let's discuss in the comments below.